Welcome to Stories Behind the Stories, Women's Fiction Edition. I'm your host, Linda Hughes, and I am so happy to have with me today 5 amazing authors. We have New York Times bestsellers, we have USA Today, Amazon bestsellers, including, let's start with Kelly Coates Gilbert. Hi, Kelly. So glad you're here. And Deanna Roy, and Grace Green, Jude Baton, and
Hi.
Pamela Kelly. Hi, everybody. I am so grateful that you took the time to be with me today. I just can't wait to dig into this because as a women's fiction author myself, you're the ones that I look up to because your books are absolutely amazing. And we'll get into all of that as we go on. But I do want everyone to know that I wanted to do this, well, I guess because I knew it would be fun, but I wanted for us to be able to share with our existing readers what women's fiction is all about. And then also maybe some new readers who don't know what women's fiction is about, because I think it's a bit confusing. The words women's fiction make it sound like we write fiction only for women. And the reality is, our books are about women. And that's quite different. We don't mind if men read our books as well, although we know most of our readers are women. And so I'm going to throw this out to you. How would you describe women's fiction to someone who knows nothing about it? How would you describe that? Yes, Kelly.
Well, in my mind, women's fiction is all about the emotional journey. And a woman comes into the story one way and she leaves changed. And it's the story elements that change her. And that could be a romantic relationship. It could be broken relationships, adultery, whatever the events are, but they change her. They change who she is, how she thinks about herself, and she leaves a different person.
Oh, I love that. And so, Kelly, how many books have you written? Women's fiction books have you written? Do you know?
Um,
They're on that shelf that
34, I
we
think.
see. Those, huh? Those.
Yeah,
Grace,
34.
I
I
saw
think
you
the
raise
first
your hand.
five were with a traditional publisher, and then I got really smart and started my own publishing company, like many of these guys, and never looked back.
Yeah, very good. And so, Grace, what would you add to that?
I would say, agree with Kelly, totally the woman's journey. The protagonist have men who read my books and let me know. Um, but the thing that I love about women's fiction that I like to communicate to people is that it's very objective, I think. There's as long as it's centered on that female protagonist, it can be scary, it can be cozy, it can be heartwarming, it can be not so heartwarming. And I love that. I love the flexibility within that title of women's fiction.
I like that. And I've noticed that you have written books that really cross the some genres in a way too, kind of mixing all the story points together, and I love that when that happens. And so, Jude, I saw you flash on and off. What
Oh,
would you add anything to that about
yeah.
women's
I think
fiction?
that for me personally, and I agree with what Kelly and Grace have said 100%, but I think for me, going back to being a younger person, um, reading women's fiction was sort of like a lesson also. You know, you could find yourself in different stories, which
Mhm.
would give you a sense of less isolation, um, know that you're not alone, that it is something that collectively women often experience one way or another, and the sisterhood that goes with that. And as you said, Linda, definitely we love both genders to read our stories because men can identify with a lot of things that we go through also, but nobody gets it like a sister, right? Nobody gets it like another woman. Nobody knows those weird little things in the very tiny corners of your brain that you don't ever give voice to. And when you read certain authors, you know, like Danielle Steele, who Kelly was talking about earlier, she brought out the fact that we need romance, and we didn't know that that was okay. We thought maybe there was something wrong with us, or we were too girly, or we were, we would always think some negative association with the things that we want, because women are supposed to put everybody else first. And typically we do. It's sort of our nature. So I liked that I could read about someone, not only see the amazing journey they took and how they came into themselves, but to see that they had some of the same characteristics that I had, and that made me feel like I wasn't so crazy as I thought I was.
Oh, I love that. And that knowing that we're not alone, learning, as you said, is
Mhm.
like a lesson.
Yeah.
Learning that we're not alone. We're not the only ones who have these notions in our heads. I love that. Pam, what would you add to that? And by the way, I have to tell y'all that I went and looked at the reviews that you have gotten on your books, and the reviews are reiterating some of these very things that you're saying. So, Pam, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think one of the things I like about women's fiction is that it can include romance, and I read a lot of romance, but
Hmm.
the romance isn't the central focus of the book. There's
Right.
always seems there's always a little bit of romance in almost every book I read, but it's not the main focus. And I like too that a lot of women's fiction books often have multi-generations, so that's a personal favorite of mine. I like to include, three or even four generations of women. And for me, that's a lot of fun as a reader and as a writer.
Oh, and there's so much to glean from the multi-generations, from different people from different eras. I think we all do that, don't we? We include family stories of some kind, or friendships, or people of different ages together. Deanna, what would you add?
Well, I think for me, I write in a lot of genres. And so when I sit down to write a women's fiction novel as opposed to one of the romantic suspense, my romantic comedies, I'm thinking not so much about the big picture, the big moments in life. I'm thinking about the small everyday things that we do as women, and what makes us walk through them in a certain way. So I'm looking at the little aches, the little joys, the small things that make up the everyday parts of our lives, and that journey that we take as we become who we're going to be throughout, the aging process, from going from a young woman to whatever our life's going to take us. And I don't worry so much that I have a plot that goes a certain way, or big whiz bang banter, or any of that. I'm really taking joy and taking that those just a moment to sit in those everyday parts of who we are as women.
Oh, I love that. And again, that goes along so beautifully with some of the things in your reviews. So I'm going to read these just in, I mean, there are thousands. You all have together thousands and thousands of reviews, and I did not read all of them, but I certainly read enough. That Kelly, your Maui series, and of course, Maui is important to me because I got married there 38 years ago and have been back a few times. And just over and over, reviewers were saying how much they loved the series. And one said, I could smell and feel the island. I was there. I loved the characters and how they could be any of us. And so putting people into that place with people that they want to know is just such a great thing to do. Grace, I loved this one. One of your main characters is named Kara, and a reviewer said, I think Kara and I have met. I know her in real life. And what a great feeling. I loved it. And Jude, out of all these hundreds of reviews that are long and descriptive, and oh my gosh, it was great, and there was this, and there was this, and there was this, I love the one that just said, awesome. It's a one word. That was awesome. I love that one. And then Pam, Pam, your Nantucket series. And again, thousands of reviews where people just love your stories, and your characters resonate with them. And one person said, this is a sweet story about the support of family and friends. You can picture yourself being there. I was there. Isn't that lovely? It's just, but again, that same feeling came out over and over. And Deanna, This one. If this book does not make you feel everything, there is no hope for you. Isn't that great? I love that. So tell me a little bit. I'd like to hear from each of you, and anybody can start, but tell me a little bit about one of your favorite characters to write and why that is one of your favorite characters. What resonates with you as you were writing that character?
I'll start.
Yeah.
I have written mothers, sisters, friends, 32 books. I've got a lot of different character amalgamations, but I think my favorite is the mother character, the one who doesn't just try to balance her own needs, her own things, but she's got her family. And all of that impacts her in a big way. And I mean, I love family dramas. I've started to write them, and we all live in families we love them dearly, but there's conflict and misunderstanding and, kids make poor choices and
Oh yeah.
or
Yeah.
they believe different than we do, or a number of things. But the mothers are the ones I love.
You're just reminding me, did anybody see the recent Michelle Pfeiffer show on TV? It drove me crazy because I love her. But it was about her rebelling against her family because they didn't appreciate her. But what drove me crazy was in the beginning was she's doing all the work. She's taking care of everybody. She's cooking and cleaning and taking out the garbage. And they're sitting there watching TV. And I just wanted her to shout at them, get up, help me. And so I think those are the kinds of things that do go on in families. Who else? What's one of your favorite characters that you wrote? Yes, Pam.
So I really love writing grandparents, older characters. I have in one book that I have out already, an 80-year-old retired detective who's now working part-time at an agency, and he's totally my grandfather. So he's that funny kind of, just a unique character. And in the book that I have coming out in June, Nantucket Second Chances, I have a grandmother who's living at an old age home retirement center, but she is still stylish and fashionable and feisty, and she was a lot of fun to write.
Oh, that sounds like fun. Uh, and what was it? Thursday Murder Club that came out recently,
Yeah.
the TV show as well. And the former CIA agent in the retirement home just causing all kinds of trouble. But that's neat. I love that. Yes, Jude.
I'm very predictable, unlike these nice ladies who are just so interesting with the characters that you like to write. And I'm pretty boring in that I really like writing my female protagonist. And I think it's because most of us we use people that we know and love, people that we don't like. We draw so much from life for our characters. And whenever I write my female protagonists, they're all somewhat similar, but they're all different facets of me. Not always the parts I like, sometimes the parts I dislike, but it's sort of like you get to play with yourself in a sense of fixing. And I like to write people that are broken, and we're all broken for different reasons. And I like to little by little put little band-aids on everything that's taken that person to that situation where they are almost ready to give up. But the different things that happen in the story put them back together again, even though they don't realize they're getting put back together again because they're putting everybody else back together again at the same time. But I think because I personally identify with them, and maybe that's selfish, I have fun writing all of them, but that's the one that always gets me the most because it's like an opportunity to give yourself therapy in a way, and look at things differently or through someone else's eyes with a little twist. So it's you, but with a twist. And for me, it's always sort of an exploration. So at the end of the book, if I don't cry, and I'm not a crier, but if I don't have a little sniffle, my husband says, "Oh, you're not happy with it then," because I always have that little bit of a tier. And I think it's not just a sense of completion, but it's the journey that you've gone on with them. And it's like you mended a facet of yourself. It is for me anyway. So that's
Well,
my
I've never
favorite.
thought of it as personal therapy, but I guess it is, isn't it? Does it feel
It
that
can
way
be.
to anybody else? Yeah. And I've got one of those pillows you talk about. We write about the people that we know, and I've got one of those pillows that says, "Be nice to me, or you'll end up in my book." And that's true. Do you think most of us use our personal experiences, or do you feel like you go way outside your personal experience? Like
Yeah,
you
that's
just said the one character is your grandpa. Yeah, Deanna.
oh, all of my Deanna Roy books are. That's how you know you're in a Deanna Roy book as opposed to my other pen names, because all of them are struggles that I've had, that we've been through, my family's been through. And so that leads into the characters I like to write the most are the ones that have a very specific struggle. And so I like take you through that struggle, and it's what it looks like to go through that struggle and what it's like to put butter on toast when you're going through a daughter with epilepsy, or you're just had a pregnancy loss a few days ago, or currently I'm writing a foster care story, and literally putting butter on toast is a struggle because now they've got kids with different needs, and they can't use this butter, and they realize they have to throw out, those are the things that I want to show, is like, how could I put the act of putting butter on toast through the ringer in all these different ways that I know, because I've had to go in there and try to make breakfast on a day that I didn't want to get out of bed, and to show a character who does not want to get out of bed and still gets up and gets breakfast for her family, that's the story that I want to write.
I love that. And so we talk about how some of this helps heal us. But Grace, I want to hear about your character. And then let's talk about what it is that we want to bring to our readers as well. So, Grace, what's one of your favorite characters?
I'm actually going to pick a character. Okay.
Okay,
And that
good.
would be Lillian Moore in A Barefoot Tide. She spans both of my areas that I normally write in geographically. And she is unrepentantly herself. She comes from nowhere
Hmm.
in rural Virginia, and she ends up at the beach. She's never been there before because she's never gone anywhere before. And I got to relive those first times at the beach when I was young. And there's always in my book a much older person, usually female, who is like her mentor,
Hmm.
but not intentionally.
Hmm.
And within them, the younger woman and the older woman, they find where they benefit each other, a learning and a helping situation, which I love. But yes, that character is my favorite character I've ever written.
Oh, I like that. And I think for most of the things that we write, we bring, as I said before, a piece of ourselves into that. So, what do you think out of all of that we're giving to our readers? What are readers looking for? What do readers expect or not expect? What is it that resonates so well? Because as I mentioned with your reviews and the success of all of your books, they're obviously really, these stories resonate with women. And so, yeah, Kelly.
Well, I like to say that my books are both a vacation and a homecoming. I love to take people to places that they would love to vacation, like Maui, like the Tetons, like Sun Valley, Idaho, like the beach. Um, an armchair vacation is about the best you can take. And I'm also incredibly snoopy. I was a former legal investigator, worked for the Justice Department and for large law firms. And I spent a lot of hours in courtrooms, and there's nothing that is more intriguing than the drama and the relationships and the emotion that occurs in those places. And I knew even back then that I was going to write someday, and I was tucking things away. And I'm the person who, I mean, my husband, he just, we'll go out to dinner, and I'm the one who's looking at the table over there, and there's a man is trying to grab her hand and be soft and affectionate, and she pulls it away. And all of a sudden my head starts going, okay, this is the story, blah, 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 blah,
Mhm.
and Alan says, quit looking at them. That's who I am. I'm Snoopy.
Uh-huh. Oh, I love that. Anybody else? What are readers? And by the way, I used to do that when I had a job where I traveled all the time. I did it in airports. And I would, because I spent so much time waiting in airports, and so I would make up stories to go with all the people. Oh, that one's a mobster. That woman hates her husband. You know, and it was so much fun to do that. So who else? What else are our readers getting? Yes, Grace.
What I most love to hear from readers is when they say, that happened to me. I've been in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had that person to help me. I love it when they can put themselves in the story and come back to me and tell me that they found themselves there.
And they certainly do from the reviews. That's exactly what happens. What else? What do you think of readers? Yes, Jude.
I think because I'm originally from another country and I was very lucky to travel as a child also, when I came to America, I was always so surprised how insulated it seemed to be. And this is going back to the 80s, and of course, it's a lot different now. But when I started to write, I wanted to take people on trips. To what Kelly said also. But for me specifically, it was Europe because I was sad that people hadn't had the same exposure that we just got automatically. No matter what level of income you belong to, you were exposed to a lot about the world, thanks to the BBC mostly. And I felt like, in living where I live in Oklahoma, it was more noticeable, I think. I felt like people had been cheated. So when I write about the places I set my stories in, it's always a hope that when someone finishes it, other than an emotional journey or an escape or this the pleasure of reading a story that entertained them, hopefully, they feel like they learned something about another place that they didn't know when they opened my book. Because I do that, when I read other people, I suck all that information in and I, spout off all these facts I know now, thinking I'm a smarty pants. But it's because I didn't know about it. I learned it's not always correct what you learned. You have to be careful, obviously, but just the general sensation of, oh, I didn't know. People didn't think that they had fridges in England when I moved here in the 80s. You have refrigerators in England? Yes. They just thought that, I don't know what they thought, but to me, that's the experience. If they can get something emotionally, have an escape, but also to have something in their head that wasn't there before they opened it, and then have an interest in something, and maybe go read somebody else's book set in a similar location.
Mm-hmm. And I know for myself, and as I said, I used to travel for work, so I've been all over the world. So I like to put my characters in places where I've been, but I still have to do a lot of research.
Mhm.
And do you
Yeah.
find yourselves doing research? Do you do that too? Do
Too
you?
much.
Yeah.
I love it when I can't even write a sentence without having to look something up. And then I'm like, okay, wait, what would they see next?
Yes,
And I'm sitting
yes.
there on Google Maps and I'm like, oh, the book I'm writing right now, I feel like every page is research and I'm writing from lived experience and I'm still having to check every page. Is this still true? Is this still the law? Is this still what happens when this happens? I'm in the foster care world in this book and it is a lot. But I do think what I would like my characters, my readers to take away is like how to treat people in certain situations. So, when I wrote the epilepsy books, I wanted people who aren't going to stop and read a poster on what to do when someone has a seizure see a lot of seizures on the page, see people who did it correctly, people who didn't do it correctly in the book in the context of a story, to
Mhm.
see the results of helping them, not helping them, being aggressive, all the things that we have seen in our lives, I put in there so that they could see the behaviors of others and that it would stick with them after they read the book. Like, okay, I feel like maybe I do know what to do now because I've read this book and I'm about to write my third epilepsy book. Because it's really important to me to get certain, because this could be my daughter, right? If someone, I want as many people as possible to know what to do. I can't put posters up everywhere. I can't educate everyone, but I can write really compelling books that in the process of
Mhm.
reading it, you know what to do when someone has a seizure in front of you. So that's been one of my great imperatives as a writer.
And that's real life because we're all at some point in time in situations where we need to know how to handle a tough situation like that. And I'm thinking of situations I've been in a couple of times where people had seizures and I had no idea what to do. And thankfully there were other people there who did know. And for any kind of disability, for anything that goes wrong. And so incorporating that into a story that's about is someone's life story is a great way for us to learn how to handle that. I like that. Anything else about what readers get or don't get out of our, yeah, Pam.
So some of the things I noticed in reviews early on that people were saying about the Nantucket series is it came up over and over like these people feel like friends. And I asked my sister, I'm like, why do they say that? I don't get it. And she goes, well, think about it. She said, you're writing these books about, a very close-knit family where the siblings like each other. That's what I experience, but that's not everybody's reality. And they have a close circle of friends. So it's kind of a community that people want to go to. It's just like a lot of people don't have a lot of friends, so they like that warmth that they get from the books. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I grew up on the Cape. Um, and one of my best friends married a chef and moved to Nantucket, and we're total foodies. So I go there all the time, and I always wanted to set a book there. So one of the things I did that was fun is I mentioned all of my real places, like real restaurants. So I'm constantly being asked, "Is that real?" I'm like, "It's real, and the tacos are fabulous."
So let me ask you about that. When you use a real restaurant, or for any of you, if you use a real place, do you get their permission, or do you feel like you should, or you don't need
No, I
to?
think the rule of thumb is say nice things, but the only danger. So I recently re-released the Nantucket restaurant this
Mhm.
past June, and in the updates for it, the publisher pointed out that three of the restaurants that I had mentioned that were there and that I loved back in 2020 had closed between COVID and just restaurants a lot
Yeah.
of times don't have a long life cycle. So I updated those things. So that's one thing you might have to watch out for. But otherwise, it's really fun, to mention places. And I think the key is if you're going to mention a place, only say nice things, and then you won't get in trouble.
Yeah. You do that, Kelly, with Maui, don't you? Do
I do. Sometimes I name it different, but one of the things that is so fun is when you do research, especially when you get to go to Maui. But I visited, my family lives on a pineapple plantation. And so I got
wait,
to
wait,
spend
wait, your family in the book?
in the book, yeah.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
so I got to go and visit a pineapple plantation, and I worked on it for 2 days. I waxed pineapple, I packed pineapple, I planted pineapple. And so, Deanna was talking about authenticity and trying to, research and make sure that the details are accurate and that they mean something. And so that's a lot of fun. And I know, so many of these girls I was fanning before I met them as friends. And I these are the books I've read and are on my shelf.
Mhm.
And so for anyone out there, you just can't go wrong buying any of these books. I'm just saying.
Well, and that's why I invited all of you here
And
today.
Pam's books always make me hungry.
True. That's true.
It's true. And so you just made me think of something. What's the most unusual thing any of you have done for research? Kelly worked on a pineapple plantation. What have you? Oh, Deanna, you're laughing.
I don't know if I should
What did
say
you
this.
do?
Well, in one of my books, the characters are going up the ladder to a water tower in a small town and end up doing things that they probably should not be doing on a ladder. So I started wondering, is this possible? Can you? So I got my husband and I said, oh, he's like, oh, there's a ladder just like that on the backside of my office building. So we went and tried it.
You win. You win.
Yeah.
So much harder than we thought. I was like, I don't have the arm strength for this.
So you had to give your character some arm strength to do it. Huh? Oh my goodness.
My
Yeah,
gosh, you win.
yeah. I don't think anybody can beat that. I can't beat that.
Mhm.
Anybody else? What? Yeah, look, everybody's going no. Well, we've
Oh,
been
I love you all the
talking.
more, Deanna.
Yeah. I mean, oh well. So we've been talking about all these books. Do y'all have a book on hand you can show us what they look like? Do you have one you can just show us the picture of it? This Love and
It's focusing.
Where We Belong. And what's the name of yours, Grace?
A barefoot time. I don't think it's focusing.
A Barefoot Tide, Witness Protection, Nantucket Inn. Excellent. And Pam, that's a new cover for Nantucket Inn, right? It's been reissued.
Yeah, so it's publishing. You can get the ebook now and the audio, but the new paperback version is releasing February 3rd. The book is the same, it's just a new cover.
Yeah. I like the old cover and I like the new cover. That's great. So do you think people really buy a book based on the cover? Can they judge a book by the cover?
I think it gets their attention to then pick it up and look at the blurb and maybe read a page or two. But yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you miss signal and you send signals to the reader that it's this, and then they read it and it's that, it just disappoints them.
That's true. What is the oddest thing, or maybe funniest, what's the oddest thing a reader has ever left in a review? Can you think of anything?
Okay, this is just going to make me laugh. Um, when I released the restaurant, I just thought it was so funny. Keep in mind, I grew up on the Cape. I grew up working in restaurants. Um, and somebody posted, because I put like a little recipe in the book that you like all the stuffings, the best stuffings I've made with Ritz crackers. And they just shredded me. They're like, no chef would ever use Ritz crackers to make in a restaurant. I'm like, oh, come to Cape Cod.
That's cute. Anybody else do anything strange or insulting or whatever? Yeah, Jude.
I didn't have anybody do this in a review, but early on I went and joined a very small group where we would try to critique each other. You know, we were all fledgling writers, and the lady that ran it was not a particularly favorite of mine because for some reason, you know how you meet people sometimes and you just look at them and you know they don't like you. You don't really know why they don't like you, but she didn't like me, and I have no idea. I didn't know her well enough to have done anything awful to her. If I had, I
And that's
probably
always a good character for a book. But anyway, yeah.
but one particular evening, I was reading my little excerpt, and she looked at me and she said, "You know, a British person would not say that." And I looked at her like, "What?" She's
Oh dear.
from, you're from New York and I'm from England. I think I might be the expert on that one. That was just the oddest thing, and I bit my tongue because I didn't want to be disrespectful, but at the same time, that was enough for me to know I'm probably in the wrong group.
Yeah.
And I did, and so we started another group, and everybody that was in that group came to it. So it turned out I wasn't the only person that had been a bit of a target, but that was the weirdest thing anybody ever said to me about my writing.
That is weird. And I have heard other authors talk about that in terms of reviews too, where they'll have a person that has a certain accent and they'll
Mhm.
write it correctly so that the character has the accent or is thinks a certain way. And there will be people who'll say, you needed to correct that. They just don't get with the flow of
Yeah.
what is happening with the characters there. Anybody else? Anything unusual that a reviewer has said? Or do you not read? Let me ask you this. Do you read your reviews?
Everyone.
Do you really? Because you have thousands. I mean, some of you have thousands of reviews. Yes, Grace.
The very first release was Beach Rental. It is clean, Christian inspirational type of novel, though it's not strictly that. But it is absolutely closed door, and it was my very first release.
Huh?
And the first review that showed up on Amazon, somebody with a name of Moose said, sex, 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 too much sex in this book. I went and I grabbed the book, right? I thought, oh my gosh, did you get the wrong insides? Now, no, I have never, unless he, I presume he, Moose Esquire or something, was disappointed that there wasn't.
Oh
on
my
page 7.
word.
I don't know, but that really threw me because it was my very first release.
Mhm. And why would someone named Moose Esquire be reading a women's fiction
No.
book in the first place? That's
No, I
crazy.
decided to walk away and let that be a mystery.
Yeah. And we can only hope that readers, and I think they do, people who read our books are smart enough to know that there are always trolls out there. There's always somebody who is unhappy with everything on earth, and they're going to be unhappy with your book. And that always happens.
Sometimes,
It
Linda, I
happens.
think we trigger people unintentionally too. They may have something in their background that would not generally be considered like a trigger. But maybe they had a bad relationship with a family member, and somehow when they get to a certain part in your book, it sort of triggers them on that, and it spoils the read. And sometimes I think they'll reflect that and do not finishes and things like that.
Yeah, and so it is, these stories are very personal. And so they're just, it's not possible for them to hit just right for everybody out there. But they certainly do for a lot of people. So
I love
what's,
it when they directly contradict each other because I'll have a review that said the pacing was so slow, it dragged on forever. And then the very next one will like, she rushed through this story. Which is it? Which is it?
Yeah.
and it's interesting when they sometimes fight with each other. It doesn't just happen that way accidentally. They're responding. So somebody's, I didn't like this book for this or that. And then when people come out and support it, it's just leave it alone. Let them go. I love that. So what is your writing process? I know that we're all full-time writers. This is what we do. This is our career, it's our job. Uh, what is your process? Do you get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee? I know I do. I do nothing until I have that cup of coffee, and then you get going, or do you take it more laissez-faire? Do you keep a schedule? How does this all work for you? Yeah, Pam.
Well, there's what I want it to be, and then there's what it is.
I love
Now,
that.
I'll give you in a perfect world what I think it should be for me.
Mhm.
The days that I get up very early. I'm usually up by between 5 and 6. So the days that I'm up and I make myself a cup of coffee and I do not get on the internet and I do not check email and I just start writing, I get so much done. And there's something about being kind of half awake that lets me slip into the story more easily. And I can do that more effectively at the beginning and at the end of the book. The middle of the book is when I fall out of that routine and I've 50 books now. This happens with every book.
Wow,
And in
50.
the middle of the book is when I start thinking that my great idea is the worst thing ever written. What was I thinking? And there's this other idea that's way better that I should really write instead.
Oh,
And, so that's when I become a binge writer and I don't write every day, but I'm thinking about it in my head and trying to figure out, basically I just stress and stress and stress. And then suddenly I'm like, okay, I have to sit down and do it. And then I sit down and I get back into it. So I don't recommend that part of my process, but it happens with every book. And with every book, I'm like, you're not going to do that. You're going to get up every morning and get all your writing done by 8 o'clock when I go do my little chat with my other author friends. And then I'll have the whole day ahead of me. And wouldn't it be nice if I did that?
But it certainly does work for you because there's certainly nothing wrong with the middle of any of your books. You said you sort of fall off at that point.
Oh, it's always fine. It's
It
a then
always works
like
great. Yeah.
the thing that's crazy is by the time I get this, oh, this is another part of the process too. I'll always have a word count. Let's say it's 80,000 or something in mind that I'm shooting for. By the time I get to like 40,000, I'm like, what am I going to do with these people for another 40,000 words? I'm never going to get there. And then, but then by the time I get to 65,000 words,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I could keep going for like another 40. Then it just kind of writes itself. So it's crazy. I'm a binge writer, basically.
I love that process. Who else? What do you do? Yes.
In one of my early books, I was fortunate enough to work with a book doctor, and he taught me something that I've just carried along. He said that in a book, there's an inciting incident, and that's usually in the first couple of scenes where something happens that pulls the protagonist or the family or the whatever out of their normal life and puts them on a journey.
Mhm.
And at that point, list all the reactions to that incident that could take place. One person could feel this way, one person could feel that way, and usually they're opposing. And then create a character to represent each one of those reactions, and you'll have automatic tension through your novel.
Oh, wow. I love that. That was a good book, Doctor, wasn't it?
Yeah, he is good.
That's good. Grace, what do you do for your process? Maybe I should ask, is there a process?
Yeah, there used to be more of a process. I've had a few surgeries in recent years, and every time that happens, it totally disrupts the process. Just
Mhm.
totally. And then it takes me a bit to get back in. Um, but yes, I do have a process, and I chart the number of words that I write each day, and they are spontaneous. They are not plotted,
Mhm.
in an Excel spreadsheet. And depending on, I would like to have ideally 1,500 words a day. Usually doesn't happen. Sometimes I get twice that, sometimes I get less than that. But what I find is when I'm thinking about stopping for the day, I look at that Excel spreadsheet and I put my total in, and I've got calculations. So it shows me, how many I've done, how many I've done for the week, whatever. And when I look at that and I go, oh, well, if I do 15 more words, I'll hit this mark. So I'll do 15 more words, and before you know it, I've added a couple. And then well, if I can get 50 more words, then I'll be this much further. So it's like I play a little bit. It's kind of silly, but sometimes that's what we have to do. Do little hurdles. And that's what I need to get back to doing. I haven't been doing that with books. The two I'm working on now. And
Mhm.
so I need to get back into that. But I'm trying to that process. But now I am a one gallbladder less, and that's the only one I had. So gone.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're okay. And getting
I
back to your
thought,
process, your process sounds a little bit like a game. You're playing a game with yourself, If I
yeah,
get
trying
heat,
to
And I
become
have
book
to say that
focused.
Grace's process works. Her books are lovely.
oh,
Oh,
yes.
thank you, Kelly.
Yeah. And so, Jude, what's your process?
Um, it was a little bit like Pamela's to start with, and that worked really well for me. The getting up early and cramming a couple of hours in. And I liked what she said, especially about not being so awake that you kind of slipped into your story more. I thought that made a lot of sense to me. And then, as you know, Linda, my life changed dramatically about a year and a half ago. My youngest son, who's now 46, had a medical emergency, and he's become a quadriplegic, and he now lives with me. So I'm a full-time carer, and that threw everything into a bit of a spin. I'm up with him every 4 hours to do things I have to do, so that affects my sleep. And so I don't wake up at 5 raring to go. I'm exhausted a lot. And it came hand in hand with a contract for 3 books with Harlequin, which introduced deadlines. So in the last year, I've taken on a contract for 3 books and become a full-time carer. So I'm very challenged at the moment. I'm learning as we all did, those of us that have children, we all remember bringing those kids home and finding time for yourself became, gold dust, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm still trying to do a bit like Grace does, chart my word count, try to get at least 1,000 a day, and not let the quality of the story suffer because I'm force writing a little bit because I've got to get it done. And I worry that I'll lose my voice in there, my style, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going through a learning process, but I'm determined to prove that I can do many things simultaneously, and it can be done. And I've waited until being in my 60s to become a published writer. So I'm damned if I'm going to give it up at this point. And I haven't even told Harlequin that I'm in this situation because I didn't want to. I feel like that. I mean, I'm sharing it with you, and obviously people that watch this podcast. But it's not a badge. It's I'm a mother, and my son comes first in this situation. But I really don't want to sacrifice the love of writing. And I know that with work, I'll find the right balance, as we all have, with all the hats that we've worn in our lifetime. There's part of me that would like to write about this experience in so much as it might help as to what we were saying earlier, whether it was fictional or nonfiction. But I'm still currently trying to get used to the life of it, and writing about it to me would be almost a double whammy. I'd rather just escape in a book than just document what's going on with us, so to speak, because it is massively life-changing. So my process is getting there. And I've hit 2 of my 3 deadlines, so I'm doing something right.
You are. You are. And the way you've met this challenge is so amazing. And it strikes me that as writers, we really do have some flexibility that a lot of people would never have.
Yes,
And
definitely.
so being able to figure out how to develop a new process in your life is just something that not everyone with their profession is able to do.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I'm so glad you have the writing and that you're working that out.
Thank you.
What a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Deanna, I saw you nodding when
Oh, I was just thinking of Jude's story, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I agree. I've written, I think, gosh, I've written a kid's book about epilepsy, not kids, I guess a middle grade book about epilepsy, and then adult books too. But when my daughter was at the worst, there was no way I put that story down.
Mm-hmm.
There was no way I could write about it because just to open the book and see the word, you're just in it, and you're a mess. There was some people can write their way out of hard things, and I might could journal my way out. Back in the day, I used to journal, but now I feel like all my words go into my novels. I don't know if you find that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I used to
same thing.
blog too. I can't blog anymore because I feel like, oh no, I should be writing posts. I should be doing marketing. So that kind of writing I don't do. But yeah, I cannot write my way out of it when I'm in it. So I would be the same as you. Right now, I can write my foster care book because we're in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm able to look back and go, okay, well, I'm still in the system and I've still got all the things around me and all those resources, right? Because I have people who come to my house constantly still. And I can ask them, like, hey, is this true? I can still write it, but if I'm in a hard place, that's going to be for me to process and write about later. Yeah.
Mm.
What about you, Linda? What's your process?
Oh, whoa, I need a process, huh? Oh, I'm actually quite rigid in my process, as anyone who knows me will tell you, and that is, for so many years, I had to be a certain place early in the morning with my 2 different careers. Every day, you had to be there, whether you were sick or not, you had to show up. And yeah, Kelly, identify with this, but I was on a schedule for so long. I find that I just my writing works best when I'm on a schedule. And I even schedule my breaks and I schedule my lunch. And I'm like Pam, it doesn't always work that way, but a lot of the times it does. And that's the only way I get anything done. Otherwise, I just am all over the place all the time. So, well,
I remember years ago I saw Susan Mallory speak at a local writers conference, and I remember being so impressed because she does that. She has a spreadsheet, kind of like Grace. She's a mix between you and Grace, and on her spreadsheet, she plans it out ahead of time. I think her goal was 2,000 words, Monday through Friday, 2,000 words a day. She schedules in vacation. She has everything scheduled so she can look at the year and know what she has going on. I'm just like, wow.
I do. I schedule it too, and it doesn't always work out the way I scheduled it, but most of the time it does. But I just wouldn't get anything done otherwise. You all have reminded me of one more question that I had of you, and that is, I know that we cross genres. We kind of, what do they call it, a mashup in our writing these days. And that is, we know we write women's fiction. We write stories that are about a woman's journey through life, and she changes throughout the process of the story. And yet, when I look at all of your books and even my own books and look at the categories that they're listed under on Amazon, very seldom are they listed under women's fiction. And so it could be family saga, it could be romantic suspense, it could be a number of different things. And so I'm wondering about whether you purposely know that you're mixing genres or if it just happens naturally as you write your stories. And what I'm finding in a lot of things that I'm reading right now is that that's really popular with readers, not authors, is that they want stories that are a blend of what we would normally call different genres. Are you doing that purposely or does that just naturally happen in our
I think
stories?
that naturally happens with women's fiction because so many women's fiction covers so many different things.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Right? That's the joy of it. We can go where we want. Of course, sometimes some of the other authors, I don't know, they might have also experienced that, where they write a book that's a little outside of even that experience, where it's more. And I've got a couple of those that I haven't published just because I don't know how they work with branding. Um,
Yes.
even though women's fiction is flexible,
Mm-hmm.
don't know how flexible some of those boundaries are.
Do you find it almost unfortunate that we have to worry about branding? Because we
Yes, and I
know that
think
we
it's
do, and I don't know if
silly.
readers are aware of how much we
Yeah,
know we have to do that. If we don't fit into certain boxes online or on Amazon or in searches, and so do you find it unfortunate that we have to worry about that, or is that okay with you?
no, I think that's the limitations we put on ourselves.
Mm,
Because that's why some authors go with pen names, right? They want to write something that's horror, or they want to write like something that doesn't really fit within the stretch of that women's fiction. Um, so when we don't publish it, that's like our own insecurity. Whether we don't publish it under our name because we don't want to mess up our branding for that name, or because we're not sure how it will be received, and it might actually like really be crap, and we just don't even know because we don't put it out there. And I know I can't be the only person who does that.
so, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think about that all the time. Is should I be using pen names, or do I see something that another writer does and it crosses my mind? Maybe she should have done that in a pen name. So let's talk about your pen names. I know that some of you write under different names. Grace, you're just Grace Green, not just Grace Green, but
I couldn't
Grace.
manage more than one of me.
One is wonderful. And so, Kelly, do you have any pen names? You
No,
don't?
I stay with Kelly Coates Gilbert, my women's fiction. The only deviation that I have done is over the last years, I've moved from single protagonists to primarily large cast character novels with like family sagas. And if people love, oh, my all-time favorite television show is Parenthood. So if you love Parenthood or This Is Us or those big family and there's all this stuff and it's kind of episodic. So
Yeah,
I've moved, but I've moved under my name and I've moved slowly so my readers could signal me if they just didn't want me going there. But thankfully
they do.
they have the pom-poms out. So yay.
Yeah, they sure do. They do. Deanna, you have a pen name.
I have 4 active pen names, and
Whoa.
they're behind me is the yeah, the debris of pen names I have left behind. Yeah, I'm very big on branding. I taught workshops on branding, so yeah, you can see even in my roof, you see the pickle side, and then you see the pink side, so you can even see the behind me. There's like a very specific branding. You should be able to glance right there and you see how different the books are. Which ones are going to be softer and gentler, and which ones are going to be sillier and funnier. Yeah. Because my biggest branding divide, though, is whether I write something that's closed door or whether I write something that's open door, because that seems to be a dividing line that a lot of people don't like to cross. And while the steamy people will read the closed door things, it's not in big numbers. So but my closed door readers, they really don't want to be surprised by, oh, we're going to go there for 20, 30 pages, Deanna, really?
Yeah.
So that's my
You're going to
big.
climb that ladder? Yeah.
Well, truly, my favorite review of all time was for my JJ Knight pen name, where someone said they just did unsanitary things on a deli counter. I used that one in an ad for a very long time. She was like, 1 star. And I'm like, ew. But that's a dividing line, right? Because like when we're gonna read This Love, that there's this is all closed door. This is about the struggle of the people and the things they're going through and putting the butter on toast, like I talked about.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's things getting buttered in the other books, but it's very, very different. And I want that line to be there.
So tell us what your pen names all are, the four
So
of them.
JJ Knight writes romantic comedy, and that's probably my most active pen name. JJ Knight is both traditional and independently published, and I've also sold like tons of rights. That's a big pen name for me right now. Deanna Roy is, of course, where I started. That's my name, and all the books by Deanna are women's fiction, and there's some like new adult romance in there. It's still very issue-driven stuff, but it's just a little more romancy. Abby Tyler is where I went completely closed door. That small town, 2 little old ladies are matchmakers in the town, and they open every book and they decide who they're going to put together, and it's just sweet and cozy. And then I have a romantic suspense pen name, Annie Winters, which I write with my husband, or I did before we were foster parents. We wrote a whole series where he did the car crashes and the shoot 'em ups, and I did the love scenes and the steam and stuff. So those are the 4, and they're very, very distinct. They all look very different. If you run across them in the wild, you should know what you're getting.
That absolutely blows me away. That's amazing. I have a hard enough time keeping track of one. That is really great. So you're really a master at branding. Is
But it is fun. I mean, to me, I don't ever get bored with one thing. So I have 70 books, but I also don't overwhelm either a reader or the algorithms with having too many books. Like what should the algorithm recommend? What should you recommend to somebody if you're talking about me? It just kind of keeps things in like neater little packages. But there is more work, absolutely. I mean, there's Instagrams for the different ones. There's the Facebook pages for the different ones. So there is a whole lot more to it.
I don't even know how you do it. So congratulations for
Full-time
getting it.
job.
Yeah. Well, Pam, I don't think you have do you have a pen name? I don't think so. But you write, haven't you switched to writing in a little bit different genre?
So this is my main pen name. I have one that's not active, but I used to write sweet historical romance
Mm.
about 10 years ago under the name Ashley Merrick. Um, I don't write those anymore, but I still like historical. So I have written a couple of books that are not straight out of this brand under Pamela Kelly. I did Gilded Girl a couple years ago, and
Mhm.
that's set in the Gilded Age era. And that was so much fun to write. That also talk about research. That took me probably 3 years to write that book because I wrote it like on the side, kind of off and on, and did my research. And then
I
I did
loved it. Yeah.
4 years, the years go by way too fast too. So 4 years ago, I did a mystery. Because I did my first book I actually wrote was a mystery that was Trust, and then I did Motive, and then I switched to romance, and then I never went back. So I've been itching to write. I read a ton of mystery and psychological thrillers, and I've been dying to write one. So I did women's fiction mystery. So it's a mystery, but it has the same feel as my books. And it has, like I said, the 80-year-old character, a mother and a daughter, and they run an agency here in Plymouth. So the one thing I learned that was so fun is I had never set a book actually in my hometown before. And when I published that book, suddenly I had all of these local places reaching out to me. Oh, would you like to come talk to the library? Would you like to come talk to this ladies group? Oh, it's the newspaper. Can we do a little article on you? I'm like, oh, okay. And no one had ever bothered, no one had ever asked me to do anything before I wrote the mystery. And some of my readers made the transition to read the historical. Some of them did it kicking and screaming. They're like, we don't read historical. But then they heard because other people, well, I have a reader group that's really active, and some of the people that read it would go post and they'd be like, well, it's just like your other books, but it's set in the Gilded Age, and we liked it. So then other people started taking chances on it, but it still doesn't have the same size readership as my regular books do. But I still like I constantly want to write other genres. Like I'm dying to write a psychological thriller, but I probably wouldn't do that under this name.
Ooh,
I
we
don't
look
know if I
forward.
can do that. I read them, but I don't know if I could come up with all those twists. So who
Oh,
knows?
yeah, I look forward to that. I bet you can. And I did not know that you had Ashley Merrick was your historical.
Yeah, those are mostly novellas, and I think there's about a dozen of them. We did one the group project that was hilarious because I thought it was crazy that we were doing it. That there were 45 authors in this group project,
45. Yeah.
50 books, and we released a book a day from Thanksgiving through New Year's. And yeah, that was actually turned out to be really, it went really, really well, better than expected. So that was a lot of fun.
I can't even imagine organizing something like that. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it was fun. I ended up having to write two books in it because actually there were three of us organizing it, and two of us ended up having to write two books because two people dropped out. Because we had it set up that we had a deadline a month ahead, just in case somebody couldn't do it. And they were novellas, so they were like 35,000 words.
Mhm.
So, we had to add a couple books, but it was fun.
Would you ever do that again?
No,
So, been there, done that, not doing it again.
exactly. It was fun though. Absolutely.
I love that idea though. And Jude, I know you have a pen name because I just learned this yesterday. You have a launch today, right? Am I right?
I do, yeah. My first book with Harlequin comes out today, which is kind of bizarre, and we have nothing planned. There's a lot of snow here, not going anywhere. And I woke up and had a moment of downturned mouth at 4 o'clock this morning and went, "It's just another day." But it is just another day. But it's an exciting day. I'm well excited to
And
be
the name of that book is again.
Witness Protector, and it's a Harlequin romantic suspense. My first venture in that genre. I prefer to write historical mysteries mainly. They kind of fall into the women's fiction because of all the things that we've talked about, but that's my leaning. I've always been a huge Victoria Holt, Daphne du Maurier, Phyllis Whitney. Those are my go-tos.
Yeah.
And I've got I think I have 7 books there. They're called the Secret Series, that are out there. And when I started to write, my name is quite long because I remarried at 50. My name is Deborah Judith with an E Bayton. That's my name. And then I married a man with the last name Fitzsimmons, and I didn't want to lose my name. This is before I had a book. I wanted to keep my family name. It was important to me. I have 2 children, 2 adult children, who have that name, and I didn't want to give it up. And so my name is Deborah Judith Baton Fitzsimmons, which is actually longer than the alphabet, which is ridiculous. And so when I started, when I had the opportunity to start the writing career, I decided to take my middle name and my maiden name and make that my pen name because it still felt authentic. And my dad had screwed up on my birth certificate and written Judith with an E, Judeth, instead of I. So, and I've always loved, Hey Jude. Who doesn't love Hey Jude? It's a cool name. And I thought, that's what I'm going to. So that's what I started with along my journey. At some point, one of the editors I worked with had a kind of like Pamela, not as massive as a project, but she started a project where every Friday the 13th, they released an anthology of stories that were all set Friday the 13th, 13 authors. We had to have certain things that we had in common, that the murder had to happen on Friday the 13th. Anyway, I decided I'd become Jude Hitchcock. In my head, I was anyway, and I wanted to write psychological thriller. These were novellas, and I decided I needed another name for that. So I also have a name that's DJ, my initials, Fitzsimmons. And those are what I attributed to those stories because they're dark and there's language. There's not really sex in them, but it's, they're totally different. It couldn't be further apart. So those are my two pen names. I dropped doing the short stories because I just didn't have enough time because they keep doing every Friday the 13th they release another one, and I think I did 3 of them, and then I had to withdraw because of time constraints, and I wanted to focus on my other genres. So currently historical mysteries, contemporary romantic suspense, and a few psychological twisty things. And Deanna, wish I knew what you did about branding. Yeah. I'm very impressed with your whole setup. That's wonderful. And I noticed it right away.
But all of these stories that you're mentioning, because I've read your historical romance or mystery, I'm sorry, your historical mystery. And I said romance because it really is a woman's journey story. And so the women's fiction is still embedded, I think, in everything that we do. And congratulations on your launch today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I wish I could send you a cake or something.
Well, no, it's good. I feel very fortunate. Yesterday I spent the day forgetting I was 66 and I lost a year and I was 65 again. So I had to
Oh my goodness, that's great. And you're stuck in the same snowstorm that I am. So I know you're probably not going to go anywhere to celebrate.
I've got lots of chocolate.
Let us celebrate.
So I'm good. I'm good.
Jude, do you have a physical copy you can hold up? And sometimes they don't get here in time. So
is the one she showed us. Yeah.
With them, they they pretty much decide the title. Really, you don't have that much. And it was actually called In Pursuit, is what I called it, because that's what the story's about. Somebody that's being sought after. Probably not my heart's work, like the historical stuff. It doesn't come as easy to me. But I was just thrilled that they wanted anything to do with me because it's hard to get noticed. And starting at such a late age, you almost need that validation. I certainly do. And now that life has become very small, I'm not shooting off places like I used to. I'm starting to look inside a little bit and get a bit wobbly. Why am I doing that? You start going through those inadequacies that you feel about yourself. So this was wonderful to be included in this today because it's an exciting day for me, and this is how I'm celebrating right here, being amongst not just sisters, but people that love doing exactly what I love doing. That's the best. And it also encourages me because look at what you've done. My goodness, you guys have got a massive body of work out there. It's phenomenal. And you inspire me. So thank you.
Well, and I thank you, and I thank you all for being here because you're all an inspiration to me as well. And so is there anything as we wrap up here, is there any final word you would want to leave with readers of women's fiction? Ah, thoughtful, huh?
Yeah. Make
you're
the
right.
time. Make the time for yourself
Yeah.
to find something to read and go find a little quiet nook and some chocolate and a hot drink and a blankie and forget about everything that you do for everybody else and just think about yourself. It's like getting a brain massage.
Oh,
I love
yeah.
Right? That was
Isn't
quite good. I should write that down.
That needs to go in a book.
It
Yeah.
is. It's a brain massage, and it's so personal when you read. It's so personal. I think everybody should do that at least once.
And everybody who reads a book, you can have many people read the same book and each will take something different away from it.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's so beautiful about what we write.
Right.
Well, again, thank you all so very much for being here. And maybe we'll have to do this again sometime when more books come out as we write more books. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.